Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's ISRO successfully docks 2 satellites in the space, becomes 4th country to achieve historic milestone. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulates the entire space fraternity. Israel and Hamas reach ceasefire deal to end 15 months of conflict. India welcomes the announcement, reiterates achieving peace through dialogue and diplomacy. Biden delivers farewell address, capping a 5-decade political career, assures peaceful transition of power to Donald Trump. Visiting Singapore President Tharman Shanmugaratnam receives ceremonial welcome in New Delhi to meet President Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the evening today. A very good afternoon to all our viewers joining us here at DD India Live this afternoon. To begin with the historic news of the day, Indian Space Research Organisation on Thursday successfully performed the docking of satellites as part of the Space Docking Experiment or SpaceX. Earlier, on the 12th of January, ISRO brought the 2 spacecraft to 3 meters and then moved them back to safe distance in its trial attempt to dock the satellites. ISRO had successfully launched the SpaceX mission on December the 30th last year. The PSLV C-60 rocket carrying 2 small satellites, SDX-01, which is the chaser, and SDX-02, which is the target, along with 24 payloads, had lifted off from the first launch pad of the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota, and about 15 minutes after the liftoff, the 2 small spacecraft weighing about 220 kilograms each were launched into a 475-kilometer circular orbit as intended. Now, India became the 4th country to achieve the successful space docking with this mission. Hailing India's achievement in the space sector, President of India Draupadi Murmu wrote on social media platform X, and I quote her, India's space program achieves historic milestone with the successful docking of the 2 satellites launched under space docking experiment SpaceX. India is the 4th nation to have demonstrated space docking capability. This achievement paves the way for India's future endeavours in space exploration such as Chandrayaan-4, India's planned space station and Gaganyaan. Congratulations to ISRO and the entire scientists and engineers communities of the country for boosting India's space capabilities, unquote. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated ISRO and the entire space fraternity for the mission's success. Sharing on social media platform X, he wrote, and I quote, congratulations to our scientists at ISRO and the entire space fraternity for the successful demonstration of space docking of satellites. It is a significant stepping stone for India's ambitious space missions in the years to come, unquote. Singapore President Tharman Shanmugaratnam was given a ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan by India's President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, marking the beginning of his official state visit to India. Stressing the bilateral ties between the 2 nations, he mentioned that Singapore is the largest investor in India and the defence ties between the 2 nations are also strong, continuing to grow further.
The first few countries to recognize Singapore's independence in 1965, and since then our relationship has grown by bounds. It's a natural partnership between a small country, Singapore, and a very large country, India, but we found ways to cooperate in ways that are our mutual interests in a whole range of areas. Our business relationships are thriving. In fact, Singapore is the largest investor in India for many years now. Our defense relationship is strong. Our relationship in skilling has been very active in recent years, and it continues to grow.
Now, Singapore's president arrived in New Delhi on Tuesday evening for a state visit, marking his first official trip to India as the president. The visit coincides with the celebrations of 60 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries. And now let's get you all the latest from the ongoing Mahakumbh, which is the largest and the oldest religious congregation across the world. Uttar Pradesh's Prayagraj is witnessing lakhs of devotees taking holy dip in Triveni Sangam, which is the confluence of holy rivers Ganga, Yamuna and mythical Saraswati. On Wednesday, lakhs of devotees braving biting cold conditions and dense fog took holy dip despite it was not a major bathing day or the Amrit Snan. Devotees and religious sects from across the country and abroad gathered in large numbers to attend the Mahakumbh Mela. Moving on, Bollywood actor Saif Ali Khan was stabbed at least 6 times by an unidentified attacker who entered his Mumbai home in a burglary attempt on Thursday. After the attack, Saif Ali Khan was admitted to Lilavati Hospital in Mumbai, where he is currently undergoing a surgery and was reportedly out of danger. According to the CEO of the Lilavati Hospital, 2 of his injuries are deeper. One of the injuries is closer to his spine. A senior police official confirmed that an FIR has been filed and multiple teams are currently investigating the case. The Mumbai Crime Branch is also conducting a parallel inquiry into it, ensuring a thorough investigation of the case. Moving on to other stories, after months of negotiations, Hamas and Israel have finally agreed on a multi-phase deal that halts the conflict in Gaza and leads to the release of hostages held by Hamas. Besides, an agreement for the delivery of humanitarian aid to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have also been announced. The Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal will go into effect on Sunday, the 19th of January. Here's a report. Hamas and Israel on Wednesday agreed on a multi-phase deal that halts the fighting in Gaza and leads to the release of Israeli captives in the territory. The long-awaited Gaza ceasefire and hostage deal was finalized in Qatar's capital, Doha. The deal, mediated by Qatar, Egypt and the United States, would pave the way for a permanent end to the conflict in Gaza. Mediators said the deal will go into effect on Sunday and starts with a 42-day period that would see the release of 33 Israeli captives and a number of Palestinian prisoners.
Qatar, the Arab Republic of Egypt, and the United States are happy to announce the success of joint mediation efforts in order to reach a deal between the parties in conflict in the Gaza territory, to exchange prisoners and hostages, and a return to a prolonged truce that achieves a permanent ceasefire between the two sides. The implementation of the agreement will begin on Sunday, January 19th.
US President Joe Biden, meanwhile, said he was deeply satisfied this day has come, calling the negotiations one of the toughest of his career.
Well, we've had many difficult days since Hamas began its terrible war. We've encountered roadblocks and setbacks. We've not given up. And now, after more than 400 days of struggle, a day of success has arrived. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families.
Hailing the deal, US President-elect Donald Trump in a social media post said that his national security team will continue to work closely with Israel and other allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a telephonic conversation with US President Joe Biden and US President-elect Donald Trump to express his gratitude for their support in facilitating the release of hostages. Demonstrators, relatives and family members of the hostages in Tel Aviv embraced as news of the agreement spread. Thousands across Gaza also celebrated the deal and expressed relief over being able to return to their homes. People cheered, danced and blew horns to mark the 6-week initial ceasefire deal that includes the gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Bureau Report, DD India. And India has welcomed the announcement of the agreement for the release of hostages and a ceasefire in Gaza. India's External Affairs Ministry, in an official statement, expressed hope that ceasefire will lead to a safe and sustained supply of humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza. It further stated that India has consistently called for release of all hostages, ceasefire and return to a path of dialogue and diplomacy. Global leaders welcome the much-awaited historical ceasefire deal ending a 15-month-long conflict in Gaza. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the ceasefire and stressed that the priority now must be to ease the tremendous suffering caused by this conflict. Hailing the Truce deal, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said both the parties must fully implement this agreement as a stepping stone towards lasting stability in the region and a diplomatic resolution of the conflict. President of the International Committee of the Red Cross expressed hope that this agreement marks a new beginning. The Red Cross has said it is ready to help implement the ceasefire agreement and facilitate the release of captives and the prisoners. The World Food Programme called for resources, access and protection to allow its team to scale up aid to Gaza. Welcoming the Gaza truce deal, the WFP said the ceasefire is only the start, not the end. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has welcomed the Gaza ceasefire, saying peace is the best medicine as health needs in Gaza remain enormous. He added that the UN Agency for Health was ready to scale up its support alongside its partners. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi pointed to the importance of accelerating the entry of urgent humanitarian aid into Gaza as he welcomed a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. Sisi said the deal came after strenuous efforts over more than a year of Egyptian, Qatari and US mediation. Saudi Arabia also welcomed the ceasefire agreement. In a social media post, the Saudi Foreign Ministry said it values the role that Qatar, Egypt and the US played in reaching the Gaza deal. Australia also welcomed the ceasefire agreement in Gaza, with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese calling it a constructive step towards peace and stability in the region. And now let's tell you all about the Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal in our next report. Take a look.
The Truce deal is a serious initiative which will be implemented in 3 stages. In the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal, lasting 6 weeks, there will be a complete ceasefire with the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the populated areas of Gaza. Besides, Hamas will release 33 hostages, including children, women, and Americans. Besides, Israel will also gradually allow Palestinian civilians to return to their neighborhood. Apart from this, it will also allow a surge of humanitarian aid. Moving ahead, negotiations on implementing the second phase of the deal will begin by the 16th of the phase 1. This stage was expected to include the release of all the remaining hostages, a permanent ceasefire, and the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Philadelphia corridor, the border area between Egypt and the Palestinian enclave. While, should the conditions of the second stage be met, the deal would move towards the third stage. This stage is expected to address the return of all the remaining dead bodies and the start of Gaza's reconstruction supervised by Egypt, Qatar, and the United Nations. Bureau Report, DD India.
We are heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India Live. US lifts restrictions on bark, IGCAR and Indian rare earths. President Yoon claims arrest warrant is illegal. And US all set to unveil more regulations to restrict advanced AI chip access, targeting China and the rivals.
Timeless, boundless, and infinite. The essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic, world's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live. Now, outgoing US President Joe Biden delivered his farewell speech from the Oval Office of the White House a short while ago. And in his speech, he stressed on the need to strengthen democracy, saying that oligarchy is taking place and a dangerous concentration of power among a few wealthy people in the United States is gaining ground. Now, the 82-year-old politician of the Democratic Party also said that no president should be immune from crimes committed in his office. However, he assured that he would ensure smooth transition of power on the 20th of January.
And I wish the incoming administration success, because I want America to succeed. That's why I've upheld my duty to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power, to ensure we lead by the power of our example. I have no doubt that America is in a position to continue to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Now, Joe Biden, who will retire from active politics after the 20th of January, also cautioned the barrage of misinformation on the people. He especially criticized Meta's plan to stop fact-check of the information put across social media.
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies. Artificial intelligence is the most consequential technology of our time, perhaps of all time. Nothing offers more profound possibilities and risks for our economy and our security, our society, for humanity.
Now, in a move to strengthen bilateral ties and focus on advanced energy cooperation between India and the US, the Biden administration on Wednesday announced to lift sanctions on 3 Indian entities, Indian Rare Earths, Indira Gandhi Atomic Research Center and Bhabha Atomic Research Center. According to the US's Bureau of Industry and Security, the removal of these entities will support the US foreign policy objectives by reducing barriers to advanced energy cooperation, including joint research and development and science and technology cooperation towards shared energy security needs and the goals. The official release comes a week after U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan made the announcement on Washington's behalf during his visit to New Delhi. Bureau of Industry and Security also added 11 entities to its entity list, targeting the organizations in China for activities contrary to the U.S. national security and foreign policy interests. Now, Cuba began releasing prisoners jailed following anti-government protests in the year 2021. The decision came after the Biden administration said it would remove Cuba from its terrorism blacklist and ease sanctions imposed on the island after a series of diplomatic discussions between the United States and Cuba. Just 1 hour after the U.S. announcement, Cuban President Miguel Diaz also announced his government plan to gradually release 553 prisoners following the talks with Pope Francis. Now, a day after his arrest over a failed martial law declaration, South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol has refused on Thursday to appear for fresh questioning by the investigators. Now, the former star prosecutor, who faces charges of insurrection, was questioned for hours on Wednesday but exercised his right to remain silent before being moved to a detention center. Investigators were to resume Yoon's questioning on Thursday afternoon, but his team told them he would not attend. Meanwhile, officials were trying to secure a new warrant that could hold him for longer than 48 hours. If investigators successfully obtain that warrant, they are expected to be given a 20-day extension to the leader's detention to allow time to formalize an indictment against him. Yoon's refusal to cooperate comes as the Constitutional Court is due to hold a second hearing in his impeachment trial to determine whether to remove him permanently or reinstate his presidential powers. Canada is considering retaliatory tariffs on the US goods if the president-elect, Donald Trump, puts tariffs on Canadian goods and services. Now, Canada has drawn up a list of targets but would hold public consultations before acting, said the source, adding the extent of any potential reaction would depend on what Trump does. Trump says he wants to impose a 25% tariff to push Canada to tighten border security to stem the flow of illegal migrants and cut fentanyl smuggling, a move that would appear to violate a free trade deal. Such a move would be crippling given Canada sends 75% of all goods and services exports to the United States. Vanuatu, a small island nation in Oceania, is holding a snap-general election, a contest dismissed by some as a distraction, while weary citizens rebuilt from a deadly tremor last month. Vanuatu has for decades been beset by political instability, swapping prime ministers 20 times between 1991 and 2017. The tumult reached crisis levels at the end of 2023 when 3 prime ministers rotated through the top office in the space of a month. Vanuatu's parliament was dissolved in November before disgruntled MPs launched a no-confidence motion designed to topple Prime Minister Charlotte Salvai. Recently, the Pacific nation is in news after a 7.3 magnitude earthquake rumbled through Vanuatu on the 17th of December, toppling the buildings in capital Port Vila and killing at least 14 people. Moving on, in Los Angeles, firefighters on Wednesday confronted persistently strong and dry winds, fueling 2 giant wildfires that have terrified Los Angeles for 8 days now. Officials have urged the residents to remain vigilant and be prepared to evacuate at a moment's notice, with peak wind gusts forecast to last through Thursday afternoon. Some 6.5 million people remained under a critical fire threat after the fires consumed an area nearly the size of Washington, D.C., resulting in at least 25 deaths so far. The fires have damaged or destroyed more than 12,000 homes and other structures and forced as many as 200,000 people from their homes. Some 82,400 people were under evacuation orders and another 90,400 faced evacuation warnings as of Wednesday. In South Africa, at least 78 people died and now their dead bodies have been pulled from an illegal gold mine where police cut off food and water supplies for months. Police said they have ended a rescue operation and believe they have brought out all the survivors and retrieved all the bodies from the abandoned mine near Stilfontein, southwest of Johannesburg. Police said rescuers would do a final sweep of the mine on Thursday to ensure no more survivors or bodies were underground. A total of 246 survivors have been brought to the surface and immediately arrested for illegal mining and immigration since a court-ordered rescue operation that began on Monday. The Democratic Alliance, the second biggest party in the governing coalition, said that the situation had got badly out of hand and called for an independent inquiry. Indonesian authorities have begun evacuating villagers after Mount Ibu erupted in eastern Indonesia, spewing a towering column of smoke and ash into the atmosphere. Located on the remote island of Halmahera, the volcano has erupted for a 5th time this year. The volcano's alert status was subsequently raised to the highest of level by Indonesia's geological agency. Local authorities evacuated approximately 3,000 residents from nearby villages on Wednesday evening. Residents living near Mount Ibu and tourists have been advised to avoid a 5 to 6 kilometers exclusion zone around the volcano's peak and to wear face masks in case of falling ash. The US plans to unveil more regulations aimed at keeping advancing chips used for artificial intelligence, furthering efforts to make it tough for China and other rivals to access the advanced technology. The move, which is a part of a series of actions before President Joe Biden leaves his office, comes days after the US officials announced fresh curbs on AI chip exports, seeking to make it harder for Beijing to access the advanced technology. Washington has expanded its efforts in recent years to curb exports of state-of-the-art chips to China, concerned that these can be used to advance Beijing's military systems and other tech capabilities. The outgoing Biden administration's moves have drawn ire, with China's Commerce Ministry saying Beijing was strongly dissatisfied and firmly opposed to them. In sports, the Indian men's Kho-Kho team continued to give a stunning run as they defeated Peru on Wednesday to secure a spot in the quarterfinals at the inaugural Kho-Kho World Cup edition. Continuing their impressive run in the tournament, the men in blue secured a 70-38 victory with a dominant performance that showcased their tactical superiority and athletic prowess. With this clinical 32-point victory, India not only secured their place in the quarterfinals but also sent a clear message about their title aspirations in the tournament. The men in blue will face Bhutan on Thursday. In women's category, India secured its second consecutive victory after beating Iran with a 100-16 scoreline on Wednesday. India began aggressively, eliminating Iran's first batch with just 33 seconds. Ashwini spearheaded the attack, while Meenu delivered an outstanding performance with multiple touch points, helping India accumulate 50 points in turn 1. The relentless assault continued across all 4 turns, highlighted by a spectacular 6 minutes 8 seconds stream run in turn 3. Wazir Nirmala's tactical acumen, along with contributions from skipper Priyanka, Nirmala and Nasreen, has established India as the team to beat in the tournament. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screens to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live.